Dig into what was undercovered or underreported. Jan?
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, you know, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years. And yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years, which could have led to a primary. For the Democrats. It could have changed the scope of the entire election. Yet, still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race. You know, that he thinks he could have beaten Trump. And I think that is either delusional or they're gaslighting.
President Biden has said repeatedly he was sick during the debate June 27th in Atlanta, and he's always been fine, and he leaves fine. That is his position, the position of many of his top aides as well, even though there is that reporting.
Yeah, so what you guys just witnessed there was Jan Crawford dropping a hell of a truth bomb on the CBS panel, in which you can see, obviously, some members of this panel still refuse to acknowledge the reality that the mainstream liberal media lied about Joe Biden's cognitive deterioration, okay? And that they should have pushed back harder against the White House, coming out here and claiming that everything was okay, everything was fine, despite what everybody could observe with their eyes, okay? And again, that's the problem with the media. Even in the face of reality, they still deny reality, right? This guy talking about, well, the White House maintains that nothing was wrong with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden said he was sick. Journalism is not supposed to be go along to get along, right? Journalism is supposed to question the politicians, question the establishment, question the authorities, when it seems as if the authorities are lying about what we can all observe, okay? And this is part of the reason why the mainstream liberal media has less trust in this country than most of our major institutions, although the trust in essentially most of our major institutions is at an all-time low. But again, the media, though, nobody trusts the media for the reason that you just saw there, which is their insistence on defending the indefensible from the Democrat Party, okay? And the irony of this is the fact that the media always wants to talk about how the American people distrust other institutions that they don't like, for example, the Supreme Court. But the American people seem to have more trust in the Supreme Court than the liberal media. They actually should do some self-reflection, which was another truth bomb that Miss Jan Crawford dropped on this panel. Take a look.
Jan, as you know better than anyone at this table, this last year was a clash of law and politics unlike anything we have seen in our modern American history. The judicial system in our country, according to Gallup, 35% confidence, 20% below our peer countries, other free market democracies. How much of that is a reflection of this clash, the Supreme Court, or just a sense that our judicial system has become, in the words of someone we've all come to know, two-tiered?
You know, that's a hard question to answer because I think you've got to,
the easiest ones,
you know, but I'm going to try, Major, because I think you've got to look past just this past year and go further back. I think it really started and took off in the wake of the Dobbs decision. The court's ruling that overturned Roe versus Wade. The outrage over that decision was so extreme that you saw, I think, a quite calculated effort to undermine the legitimacy of the Supreme Court by Democrats. Senate Democrats, for example, hearings, stories about scandals, some of which were pretty overblown, to say the least. So that has an impact on public opinion. You know, the public starts to believe that this court is corrupt, that this is, is on the take, none of which is true. I mean, this is still a court. You may disagree with their decisions. It's a very conservative court. It is not a corrupt court. These are 9 justices who have very different views on how to interpret the Constitution, who are kind of in this titanic struggle over law, not politics. Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported to say that the court was going to save Trump from a criminal trial. No, it wasn't. That was never the decision. In fact, that decision is going to help protect Joe Biden from any future prosecution by Donald Trump if he wanted to do that. So, when we look at public opinion polls, sure, the court's taken a hit, but that's true over the years. The court often takes a hit. So do other institutions. And the court's opinion, court's public opinion remains much higher than our other institutions, including the White House, Congress, and by far the news media.
Wow. Another brutal reality check. Again, I guarantee you those people hated to hear the truth, which is that, hey, for as much as you guys want to boohoo, whine, and cry about the Supreme Court, okay, and people's trust in the Supreme Court, in the institution, a lot of that is a result of propaganda from the media and from the Democrat Party. These things are not necessarily grounded in truth. And if you look at how the media has covered the Supreme Court, people can clearly see that, hey, there's a lot of propaganda going on here, right? There's a lot of bias. You guys are not being completely 100% honest about the court and their opinions. That a lot of this is not political. This is just a court that is wrestling with the law, how to interpret the law, and they're not just puppets of Trump. Okay, these are not political actors. These are judges who are doing their jobs. Okay, the decisions that they have made, a lot of them have pissed off Democrats, but some of the decisions have pissed off Republicans as well too. And the court did not give Trump full immunity from any criminal prosecution, which is not how the mainstream media reported the court's opinion, okay, at all. Furthermore, the court's opinion also helps out Joe Biden. Again, if Trump chose to go after Joe Biden because of the partial immunity ruling that was issued by the court, Trump would have a much harder time doing that if he tried to do it, which I don't think that Trump will try to do it. But even if he did, because of the court, he would have a much harder time doing it. Again, the flip side of that, never reported by the media. Again, this is why people distrust the media. It's not just about the stories they choose to report, but it's also about the stories they choose not to report on. Like, for example, the Hunter Biden story, in which CBS ended up firing one of their best and most esteemed journalists, Miss Catherine Herridge, simply because she was doing her job as a journalist. But in today's time, doing your job as a journalist, covering the Democrats and the Republicans fairly, yes, that can get you fired, okay? If you are being too harsh and too critical of the Democrats, exposing their corruption.
We eventually broadcast a story about the Hunter Biden laptop after the midterm elections in 2022. We commissioned a forensic review. I got a copy of the laptop data. I have it here still. I went to a lot of effort to get the cleanest copy of the laptop data, the same data that was provided to the FBI, because I didn't want to have any professional journalistic risk for CBS News. I wanted this thing to be totally locked down. When we did the story, we did it after the midterms. I argued against that because it was ready before the midterms. And my training is that you should always do the story when it's ready to go. You should not be dictated by the political cycle. Once we got the laptop story on the morning news, I felt that there was so much there that we could still do. For example, in the text messages, there's unfortunately the use of the N-word, the liberal use of the N-word. And I thought this was worthy of a story, but I was told that it was not something that interested CBS News. Then I asked for a forensic review of the laptop, and we found that there were more than half a dozen emails that were likely used by Joe Biden. I thought that was a story. But the answer that came back was, well, we need to know what the content is of the emails. But that was going to be a years-long process. So there was no way. So there were a lot of reasons I was told not to do it, not to pursue it.
Yeah, and we all know the main reason she was told not to pursue it was because it made Democrats look bad. Could you guys imagine the mainstream liberal media reaction had there been a laptop with text messages of Don Jr. or Eric Trump liberally using the N-word? Could you guys imagine the media backlash, what they would say? Do you think that CBS would have said, no, this is not worthy of being covered, right? This isn't journalism, this is gossip. Do you think they would say that? No, they wouldn't say that, okay? They would be covering it 24/7. If there were text messages and evidence that Trump was doing shady business deals overseas with Russian oligarchs, okay, participating in an influence peddling operation, don't you think the mainstream liberal media would cover it, right? They will cover it, okay? They absolutely will cover it. So when the liberal media looks back on the last 4 years of what went wrong for Democrats and themselves, they should do some self-evaluation, right? Stories like the Hunter Biden story should have been reported more, okay? They should have been more critical of Democrats. Had they been more critical of Democrats, Democrats probably would have been better off. I'm not saying they would have beat Trump, but they probably would have had a stronger candidate than Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, and it would have made the Democrats more competitive. But it was the fact that they were hell-bent on running propaganda on behalf of the Democrats and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that is what ultimately led to their downfall, because people could see the propaganda, people could see through the gaslighting, and that created distrust in the media. And distrust in the media also was a reflection of Democrats, because everybody could see that the media was carrying water on behalf of the Democrats. So criticism of the media essentially became criticism of the Democrat Party, okay? And they could have avoided all this had they just stayed neutral, had they not lied about everything on behalf of Democrats, engaged in Trump deranged coverage 24/7. Had they just did the damn jobs, who knows what would have happened, okay? Maybe they would have accomplished their goal of actually stopping Trump. So will the media learn their lesson going into 2025? I don't know. Okay, if I was a betting man, I would probably say no. They're going to continue their Trump derangement. In fact, they're going to turn it up as soon as he gets into office, and that's what they're going to do for the next 4 years. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.